If you don't already know about the Dirty Dozen, here's a really condensed history lesson. In World War II, the British Ministry of Defense commissioned a new type of wristwatch to be used in the battlefield. 12 Swiss watch companies answered this call, and the legendary Dirty Dozen watches were born. This Seizenn Broad Arrow pays homage to those 12 legendary watches, and it costs much less than getting a vintage piece from that time period. You can get this watch for $78 on the Merkur website or AliExpress store. There are a few dial variations, but this one with the sub-seconds hand is probably the most accurate homage to those earlier models. Like the Pierre Paulin I reviewed a while back, Seizenn is a brand under the Merkur Watch Group umbrella. This explains some of the Merkur branding you might see throughout the review. The dimensions of this watch are right in that Goldilocks zone. Field watches are typically smaller by nature, and the dimensions here follow that cue. The compact diameter and lug-to-lug measurements make this a perfect fit for a wide range of wrist sizes, and it wears comfortably on the wrist. The fully brushed case makes this watch look very unassuming, which ties in well with the field watch aesthetic. The case has mostly flat surfaces, and the transitions are well defined. There's a nice curvature at the lugs, which are drilled to make strap changes much easier. The bezel has a step construction that further cements that utilitarian look. The crown is signed with a nice engraving of the Merkur logo. The push-pull crown has a good size and grip, and it feels quite easy to actuate. You can wind the watch with the crown down, and pulling it out allows you to set the time. The crystal on this watch is heavily raised, and it lends to that vintage aesthetic. It's made from K1 mineral, which is more scratch resistant than regular mineral, but less than sapphire. I really wish they went with sapphire instead, especially since I have a tendency of scratching any non-sapphire crystal watches I own. Let me know in the comments if you're the same. That being said, the crystal they use here looks beautiful. It's very clear with minimal reflections or distortions from acute angles. In true field watch fashion, the dial is a matte black with a textured finish. The subdial has radial grooves with a light sunburst effect. I like how there's minimal branding on the dial. You only have the Seizenn name and the broad arrow symbol below that. The broad arrow is a symbol that was commonly used by the British government to mark its property, so it's nice to see that same design cue here. The Arabic numerals on the dial are printed in a white loom, and there's a yellow Fortina loom on the 5-minute markers and handset. All the printed elements on the dial look really well done. The handset has a utilitarian bead blasted finish. It's not a finish you'd usually find on handsets, but I really like that they went with this. The way the bead blasted hands catch the light helps them look legible in most lighting conditions. The minute and hour hand look very proportionate to the dial, but I felt the sub-second hand could have been just a tad longer. Mind you, the previous version of this model had an even shorter sub-seconds hand. I guess this is already an improvement. The loom on this watch is surprisingly good for printed loom. It has a strong glow without needing to be charged too much. But the loom on the hands fell a bit short compared to the loom on the numeral and markers. They look weaker from the get-go, and they faded quicker as well. I have no idea why Seizenn loomed the subdial but not the second hand. It's kind of useless because you can't actually see the running seconds in the dark. The caseback has a nice laser-etched lion and the Merkur Watch Group text. I think this simple, clean design fits really well with the field watch aesthetic. The engraved serial number kind of reminds me of the ones you'll find on casebacks from the original Dirty Dozen watches. This watch is powered by a hand-winding mechanical movement. It's a version of the Chinese standard movement that Merkur custom made. It looks good, and I didn't have any problem with this movement on my Pierre Paulin. but a couple of viewers mentioned that they had some issues with this movement in the long term. Of course, these could just be the exception instead of the rule, but I wanted to highlight that anyway. Sadly, this movement doesn't have a hacking function. Then again, I don't need to sync my time to the second for any upcoming missions on the battlefield or in the kitchen, so it's not that big of a deal for me. Seizenn pairs this watch with a 2-piece canvas strap that's actually very good for a sub $100 watch. It feels thick and sturdy, it doesn't feel rough against your wrist. So to sum up, what do I think about the Seizenn Broad Arrow? For me, this is the epitome of a no-nonsense, purpose-built mechanical field watch. It looks great, it wears great, it's super legible, and for $78, I honestly can't find much to complain about. If you like the Dirty Dozen aesthetic but you can't shell out $600 for something like the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical, this Seizenn is an excellent alternative. Sure, you don't get a sapphire crystal and a sweep movement like you get on the Hamilton, but you get that same military aesthetic and functionality at a fraction of the cost.